Gretchen, welcome back into the back room.
I think this is the third time. What do they say? The third time is a charm?
It is. I think two more times and you get a bathrobe.
As long as it has my initials on it, that'll be great.
Yeah, I'm trying to. We sent one to Essie Cup when she
Oh,
hit number
really?
5, and I'm trying to remember if it just
Are
had
you
our
being
logo.
serious?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. And Ellie Honing has one too. Yeah.
Oh, well, I see both of them a lot now because I've been doing a
Ask
lot of CNN.
ask them about
Um,
the bathrobes.
yes, I will. I'm going in tonight, in fact.
So I want to just start off with your recent op-ed from Time, entitled "What the Epstein Scandal Tells Us About the Impact of the Me Too Movement." So what does it tell us?
Well, I think that one of the reasons this op-ed got so much traction is because, a lot of people were talking about who might be on the list of perpetrators and, let's find out all that information. But there wasn't a lot of focus on the survivors necessarily.
Hmm. Hmm.
And whether or not, because we're not focusing on the survivors, that might indicate progress. So what I mean by that is there has been a tremendous amount of progress in this whole Me Too movement since I came forward already 9 years ago at Fox News, because we're not demanding to hear from the survivors to believe them. We automatically believe them. And,
Hmm.
and that is a huge step forward. If you think back to, when I came forward, the number one thing my lawyer said to me is that they're going to kill you, they're going to malign you, they're going to beat you, they're not going to believe you. I mean, that's the way we used to approach these kinds of things. And in fact, when these survivors first came forward with the Epstein stories, this was long before I did. And they weren't believed. They were poo-pooed. That's why it took so long to even get to the point of convicting Maxwell and Epstein committing suicide, if that happened, in jail. So immense progress that America in general wants to know more information. 80% of us do. And number two, they're not demanding to hear from the survivors because they believe them inherently. They want to hear who the perpetrators are and hold them accountable. That is huge progress.
Do you think that the landscape has gotten less conducive under Trump 2.0 for women to come forward?
I think that this will go down as the most unbelievably odd story to potentially have come to life during Trump 2.0. Because let's face it, he had 12 known accusers, well, more than that, 13, E. Jean Carroll, who he was convicted of abusing. But he had 12 other people who came forward in Trump 1.0, and nothing really ever materialized from that. And the number one question I used to get all the time was, how can President Trump be president while the Me Too movement seems to be exploding? And we can argue about the fact that CEOs and such can get fired from jobs. People elect presidents, so there's a different mechanism there at play. But I think it's completely fascinating and ironic that here we are in Trump 2.0, and the fact that the Epstein story not only is bringing Democrats and Republicans and MAGA together, who would have ever thunk that,
Hmm.
but that it could actually be the unraveling to a certain degree of Trump's dominance on MAGA. That a sexual abuse story would actually be the final unraveling to me. There's nothing more ironic to me in the world right now.
Why do you think that is? This was something I was going to ask you. I mean, with all the lies, all the gaslighting, all the conspiracies, all the things that Trump has thrown at MAGA over the years, why is it the Epstein scandal that does have that potential to, on some level, bring down the House of Cards?
Yeah, I don't think it's because MAGA cares about sexual assault necessarily. I don't
Hmm.
think that's what the driving force is, which makes it ironic. I think the driving force was that this was just one in a long list of conspiracy theories, right? And they overplayed their hand completely. The most other fascinating thing to me is, how did Trump let this happen? Like, he may not be the best strategist in the world, and he only listens to the last person he spoke to, and that's what comes out of his mouth. So he's not really, I don't think, a strategizing, pre-planning person per se. But for gosh sakes, he saw his own attorney general promising binders and 220 videos of child molestation, and he saw his own FBI director Kash Patel and the deputy, Dan Bongino, talking about this endlessly. And he didn't put a stop to that. That is fascinating to me, because why the stop? Why the stop now? So I think that MAGA was just so used to being behind conspiracy theories. And when the information flow stopped so abruptly, that's what caused the insurrection. But it's not because of the content of the Epstein story, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it just is so fascinating to me because he normally is so Teflon and he's able to wave off anything that is incriminating just by a simple deflection or gaslighting. And it doesn't seem to be working in this case. Like recently, he said this is all a Democrat hoax, or why didn't Democrats release the files when they were in power for 4 years under Biden? But to your point, the nanosecond that Pam Bondi stood in her office and pointed to her desk and said, I have the files, I would assume to MAGA, nothing prior to that matters anymore, right? It doesn't matter. It does not matter. And here's the irony. Here's the ultimate irony to me. Isn't that the reason they elected him? Because Democrats supposedly did nothing with these files. So to point to Democrats as the excuse for not doing it yourself just seems so bonkers to me.
Well, yes, and let's not also forget, since we started by talking about the survivors, the idea that Trump calls it a hoax, that's just re-victimizing these survivors day in and day out, because they have to, not only did they have to experience this horrific things in their life, but now it's being politicized, right? And now for Trump to try and get out of his own way, he now has to call it a hoax and he has to blame
Mm-hmm.
it on Democrats. He's looking for any possible reason why he thinks MAGA won't suddenly believe this. I just think that this will go down in history in a lot of different ways. I'll add another way. I think this will go down as one of the biggest colossal PR errors ever in politics. I just think that this, from somebody like myself who's covered politics as a journalist for more than 35 years, the idea that he could find himself in this crisis and that this is the first time he can't talk his way out of it with his base and with others. I just would be hard pressed to find another political crisis that didn't have to happen, that did and was handled so horribly.
Well, it's probably a lot of hubris. Every cult, every house of cards eventually comes down because it is a house of cards. There's no there there. It's just all smoke and mirrors, lies, gaslighting, deception. And I think he just carries on as if he thinks, he's on Fifth Avenue and he can shoot somebody and still not lose any supporters. And in this particular case, there are some people who are going, wait a second. Did that guy just shoot somebody? Oh, maybe we should call the police. It seems like there's a crack in the dam, but the big question is, will there be a flood of defection eventually, or is this just going to blow over like most everything else, especially if the media keeps falling for all the distractions? I mean, I was watching something last night. I don't remember whether it was MSNBC or your network, but somebody said, yep, he keeps distracting. And, here we are talking about the thing that happened today, DC, and we didn't really talk about Epstein. And I was driving in my car
That's
going,
true.
exactly it. That is
Yeah.
exactly it. And even if the media knows it, I guess they just feel compelled still to chase the daily distraction.
Yeah, I think he's been successful with the latest distractions a little bit more than he did the others. I mean, announcing you're going to meet with Putin, I mean, that sort of takes center stage,
Right.
you know, and the DC story. But depending on how those play out, it'll be a day of kind of a thing, and then when the meetings happen or when something happens in DC. I think with Epstein now that a lot of the coverage was kind of just operating a little bit on old news because Congress is in recess, right? And so we're waiting for these subpoenas, and there's not going to really be another shoe to drop other than the grand jury now saying, the judge saying the grand jury testimony will not be released. Um, so I think the next time there's some sort of a news nugget
Mm-hmm.
about Epstein, it's going to come full back to life. And all you have to do is watch these town halls that Republicans are having at home now during the recess and
Mm-hmm.
hear the reactions to their constituents who want to know why they're covering up the Epstein files. I mean, I don't think this is suddenly just going to go out of mind because Trump's meeting with Putin as a distraction. So, let's wait and see how the next couple of weeks pan out. But one other thing I wanted to, you made me think of something which I think is incredibly important in the fracturing of MAGA. And that is that Trump is used to controlling everyone in his orbit. And we've seen him do this with his employees, his members of Congress. I'll primary you if you vote against me, right? But there's one really incredibly influential group that he can't control. And I think that that's had a lot to do with this. And that is the group of influencers.
Right. The
Now, they
podcasters.
helped elect him, right? But they're also now coming out against him. And we started seeing this well before the Epstein story. We started seeing people like Dave Portnoy and Tucker Carlson, for that matter, coming out and being against what he was doing, whether it was with immigration or with tariffs or something else. And I would get asked all the time, do you think that this will be a trend? And I'd be like, I don't know. Well, that was sort of the lead up to Epstein. And now you have influencers, many more of them, who are coming out against, and Trump can't control them. I think that will also go down in history as a really, really important point. I mean, we'll have to see what happens, but he can't control them. And that must drive him crazy every single day.
Yeah, and they influence tens of millions of people, podcasters like Andrew Schultz and Joe Rogan. And when you think about that, elections these days are won and lost on the margins. We don't need the MAGA movement to crumble entirely. If 3 or 5 or 8 million former MAGA people go to the polls and vote blue, that is an election game changer. So I think it's a really good point, because the biggest question is, it doesn't matter what the media does. Is MAGA going for the deflections? Are they sitting at home going, oh, Rosie O'Donnell, yeah, I really don't care about Epstein now? Like, is that what's happening? Because if it's not, I don't know if we really tangibly can see it, but we will start to see it perhaps in some polling. Maybe we'll have to wait till the midterms to see it.
Okay, so let me just add a couple things to that. I'm not so sure that it's going to be MAGA people dropping off saying that they would not vote for Trump or somebody Trump-like again. I think they'll stay home. I think that's
just as good, though, no?
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's the
right.
bigger impact. You don't actually have to change their hearts and minds, because as we've seen in polling that has come out now recently, he hasn't really taken a hit with the Epstein situation. So I think there'll be.
Well, he has, I think, with independents.
That's what's going to be my next point. I think, number one, MAGA people may stay home in the midterms. And so once again, this is Trump only thinking about Trump and not about actually all the other Republicans who are up for reelection. Other than that's how you get into the whole Texas redistricting and Indiana, et cetera, because he's worried that it's going to be close in the midterm, or that he'll lose power. But to your point, independents already in the polling are drastically swaying on a number of issues. And we all know that independents decide every single election. And it just depends, especially in presidential elections, did they go for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump? Did they go for Barack Obama? And that decides every election. 43% of Americans identify as independents. So, and yet they have no party to really be in. So they kind of have to pick and choose along the way. Independents right now are very dissatisfied, especially those who voted for Trump.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think MAGA, a lot of them are going to just be like, you know what? I never voted, but I came out because I love Trump. And now he turns out to be just like everybody else, And I want to get back to my question before about why the Epstein scandal. It was drilled into their heads that there is this huge cabal of rich, powerful Democrats who are lying to them and stealing from them and drinking the blood of babies, and they're sexual groomers with kids, all this horrible stuff. And that if he comes in, he's going to change it all. He's going to prosecute them and throw them in jail. And what I want to see is that tipping point where it starts to look like he's the deep state. I don't know if we'll get there, but if all he does is lie and gaslight and obfuscate the way he claims Democrats did for years, it's hard to imagine how, at least with a certain segment of MAGA, how it doesn't get to that point.
Yeah, you know what else is ironic? I don't think MAGA gives a shit about Trump being in the Epstein files. I don't think they care. I don't think that he could do anything really that they'd be upset about. I think they're more, this is not about him being in the Epstein. This is about the idea of he was elected as the person who gets to the truth, and he comes in and he tears down all these institutions and he gets to the bottom of it and he does it quickly, and he's the only one who can do it. That's why they voted for him. Look, they've given him every excuse in the book for other alleged sexual misconduct. I don't think they care that he's in the Epstein files. That's not what this is about. So again, we kind of have to separate out the bigger story of conspiracy versus the content of what we're talking about. I don't think this is going to suddenly make MAGA people like sympathetic to sexual misconduct survivors.
No. Although I've talked to, there's a guy I spoke to, I think he might have been on CNN, maybe it was MSNBC, Rich Logis. He founded this organization called Leaving MAGA. And I asked him this question because he was in MAGA for like 7 years. And one of his responses was that for a lot of them, it is all about children and the abuse of children. I don't know if I believe that or not, but at least that's what some of them say.
Well, then how? Okay.
Are you going to get logical? You're going to start asking me a logical question.
I know. I was just going to say. So then, why didn't they care about any of the Trump accusers before? I mean, they maybe weren't 10 years old, but it doesn't make the alleged actions, right?
Of course not.
I mean, no. Yeah, but then again, you know, look, we're dealing with people who see something on videotape and say they didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's impossible to apply logic to much of these conversations. I mean, I was just watching a debate about, you know, the DC situation last night on TV, and I mean, talk again about a huge irony. Like, Trump pardoned the people who beat up and killed police officers on January 6th, and now he wants to clean up DC? What? I mean, the idea that somebody can argue against that is like, it defies logic. And these are smart people.
Yeah. Well, I was listening to him speak, and when he started saying, like, you know, DC is a beautiful city. I was flying over us. We got to protect the institutions, the beautiful buildings. I was like, build like the U.S. Capitol, like the place where you incited a deadly. But like, you can't. I vowed not to walk down the streets listening to CNN or MSNBC in my ears and cursing out loud like I have Tourette's or something. And I just still do it because I do. I have like political Tourette's, and you can't help yourself. But it's like, he doesn't care because he knows no one's the lies come so fast and so abundantly that it is hard. If I asked you, what crazy thing did he do 3 days ago, you probably couldn't tell me. Right?
No. But actually, my phone just rang because Lorne Michaels is on. He wants you to now come play Trump on SNL. That was a pretty damn good impression.
Lauren, I'm all in.
Okay, that was good.
I don't have people. You don't have to talk to my people. You don't have to talk to my people.
And are you available? Are you available on Saturday night? No, look. We can't keep up with it. The only hope that I have from a political point of view, and we've talked about this before, and I think this will also go down in history as a big question, is Trump the only one who's going to be able to get away with this in the political world? Like, you know, when Vivek Ramaswamy, can't believe I can still pronounce that name, when he was actually running for president, he was most Trump-like of any of the candidates as far as blustering and lying. And at that point, I was like, wow, maybe now there's going to be other people that can get away with this, right? But then he became so crazy, the voters kind of, they went away from him. They were disillusioned by him. And it was fascinating to look at it because they're not disillusioned by Trump lying. So maybe he is the enigma. Maybe, I mean, I hope for a political system. Do you believe that? You believe?
I totally do. And I've had this discussion with a lot of people. My favorite conversations are with people like Mary Trump, who actually get to analyze it from a professional psychological standpoint. But I think you're 100% right. Here's the thing. He is a sociopath, right? Non-sociopaths, no matter how awful they are, they could lie through their teeth. They could be bad, evil people, but they may not be sociopaths. Sociopaths only see the next 5 minutes in front of them, and so they'll say or do anything, no matter how illogical, how irrational. They don't care about getting caught. They don't care that there's video to contradict them. So all these other people, Vivek, Marco Rubio, when he did it, they all have all tried to be, even J.D. Vance, they all tried to be, even when, like, watching J.D. Vance in the Oval Office last week, when a reporter asked about the meeting that was supposed to take place that night to discuss Epstein's strategy. And he goes, fake news. He just looked so pathetic. None of them can pull it off because they don't have that other thing he has, which is charisma.
Yeah.
Like him or not, and I don't, no secret, and we're not breaking news here today. To the people who he appeals to, he has incredible charm, incredible charisma. He's funny, he's likable, and he's got that thing where he doesn't give two fucks. And they love that whole little recipe. Those other guys, they try to be like Trump, but it's never going to work. So I think you're right. And I've said this, when he's gone, there's just going to be like a sinkhole where a lot of this MAGA shit shows up. These people are not going to rallies to hear policy. So when Jerry Springer leaves the arena, they're leaving it too because they were never there in the first place. You think 78 million people, the MAGAs, voted prior to Trump? What percentage of them always stayed home? So that's where they're
Yeah.
going to be, you
A
know?
lot. A lot of them were first-time voters. Okay, so let me ask you a question. So you don't think, because Trump mentioned this last week as well, you don't think JD Vance is going to assume the MAGA mantle and that he would be successful at that?
No, he may try, but I don't think he has that. It's not like a fait accompli to me with him. Like he's the anointed one. Like he's weak. He's like a wet sponge. There's
Yeah.
nothing to him.
He was good
Uh,
on the debate stage, though.
he's good on the debate stage, but MAGA apparently doesn't like him because
Okay.
he's
Well,
exactly what they rebel against. He's the elite. He's the what is he? The Harvard guy, the who talks with big words that they don't understand. Trump sounds like your crazy uncle at a barbecue in Queens. Like so that's how he's able to get around the billionaire thing. Like when he says I'm like you, he's actually worse than you. Like
I
he's
know.
you at the barbecue going, keep Uncle Harry away from me. Like, and that's what they love about him. He's not threatening to them. Trump does not threaten his base. They don't,
That's true. But
you know.
you and I both know that he doesn't care about them.
Well,
That's
of
the
course
other.
not. He loathes them, in my opinion.
But that and again, historians will study this for decades and centuries. But the idea that, well, I guess that's what happens with all kinds of magnetic leaders like this, right?
Hmm.
That they don't really care about their. I mean, does he want to go out to dinner with any of these people? Not a chance in hell. I don't think.
No,
You know,
dinner.
yeah, I know, but
He
it's but
doesn't want to be in a 10-mile radius of any of them.
yeah, I mean, because we all know since television really took over the whole political arena, you have to have that charisma to be able to become president. Now, you don't have to be Trump's charisma, but for example, when Barack Obama came into Fox News forever ago, when he was just a newly, elected senator, he had written his first book, and I am a huge believer in body language and everything, just from watching so many people be on TV for so many years, and I watched as all the young people at Fox, by the way, were lining up to talk to him, to shake his hand, to get him to sign the book. Because why? He had that thing. He had that aura. He had the Bill Clinton thing,
Hmm.
right? And then you look at somebody like Mitt Romney, who, great guy, nice guy, didn't have it.
Hmm.
He had the looks,
Hmm.
didn't have that other. You can tell when people don't want to go around and shake the hands and all that, which is fascinating to me. Then I'm going to go back to Trump. He don't want to shake hands with people. He's a germaphobe, first of all, but he's not that person who's getting in the trenches. So it's the new form of the rally, but I think from a psychological point of view, it's a fascinating study
Sure
about
is.
who is attracted to that and why, because he doesn't care about them. And yet they think that he does. And I'm not trying to go so psychologically deep, but this is kind of stuff I think about in the middle of the night.
No, but I think you are so spot on, and very few people talk about that. He doesn't need to go out and shake hands because he has those rallies. Because for him, it is a show. Just like I don't think Jerry Springer, the Jerry Springer, associated with anybody who was like his audience either, because it's all performance. Except here's the key with Trump. He is seen as so authentic because truly he is. He is authentic.
He is.
I think this is the way Trump has been in any aspect of his life over the last 5 decades, whether you've seen him in the corner office at Trump Org or a construction site or in the White House or on Larry King. He is who he is. And who he is not only his own worst self, is that he gives license to his base to be their own worst selves. And that's the magic, the special sauce to me, is that not only is he not threatening to them, he says, hey, I'm president. Go ahead, wear that fuck your feelings t-shirt because I'm with you. And
Yeah.
that's where we are today in this country. We have half of the country who basically says fuck your feelings.
Yeah.
Really? Really? Is that really who you are? Fuck your feelings?
I know he's given full license for people to come out of their basements. Things that they were thinking in their basements that, they weren't supposed to say anymore, right? Uh,
And he
full license.
basically said, in terms of racism, he said, okay, you could take the hoods off. We don't
Yeah.
need the hoods on anymore.
They're good people.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. And I'm
And
here. I'm in the White House. I'm your guy. I will pay your legal fees if you get in trouble, like.
Well, that brings us full circle, Andy, to why I think this Epstein story is so paramount. Because based on what we just talked about, he's given full license to I mean, just look at people who talk to me on social media, like full license to be the most horrible people ever,
Right.
not honor survivors in any way, or race discrimination or whatever it may be. And yet it's a story about sexual assault that may be the undoing. I mean, that is just fascinating to me.
It's
And
just dessert.
yeah, it is. It is unbelievably satisfying, and why I wrote that op-ed to say progress. People have been asking me for how many years since Trump was first elected, how could this happen with regard to sexual assault survivors and sexual harassment survivors? How could this still be progress? And yet there is a silver lining, not to mention all the other work I'm doing and the laws that I'm passing. And look, we just keep going straight ahead. I don't really care. I don't pay attention to the fact that Trump's president. I'm steamrolling ahead. I'm passing NDA laws at the state level instead right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm going to testify before a Senate Age Committee on my new bill, Protecting Older Americans Act, in September. I'm still pressing forward, even though I'm not sure Trump would ever pass any of my bills, because I want to be ready for that moment when he's not there. And
Yes.
that could be the midterm election as the first place, and then it could be 2 years after that. So for those people out there who think that this is such a negative time, I mean, look, I have to wake up every day being optimistic because that's kind of advocacy work that I do, but I actually believe it. Mm-hmm. Because I'm actually living it and I'm actually seeing the progress. And so if we can leave anyone with anything today, it's like, yeah, there's a ton of shit going on in the world and we can't believe most of it. But believe me when I say that we're making progress.
Well, it's interesting you said you're optimistic because my nickname in the studio is Optimistic Andy. Just when everyone thinks the sky is falling, I'm like, wait, it's going to get better. Because I really do believe it. But, Me Too came on like a tsunami, and it left many abusive men's reputations and careers washed up on the shore like a fish carcass. But to some, it feels like the sexual predators have the upper hand again, perhaps due in part, like we were saying before, to the actions of the predator in chief. Are we going backwards on some level, or do you have to be able to see the forest through the trees and say, yeah, it's not a straight up progress line?
It's not. Look at the civil rights movement. I mean, look at any cultural change. Do you think they had a few blips along the way? One of the things that actually frustrates me the most, Andy, is, and I can say this because I'm a member of the media, is the way in which the media handles these things. That they're very quick to jump to the headline, Me Too is dead, when one little thing happens, like Harvey Epstein isn't convicted of all the charges. He's still spending his life in prison, okay?
Right.
I mean, Bill Cosby gets out of prison on a frickin' technicality that had nothing to do with whether or not he was guilty or not. By the way, that jury would have never convicted him if it hadn't been for Me Too, because it changed the hearts and minds of every American, including when they became jurors, to believe the women. So you have to look at the silver lining in all of this, and the media has to stop putting out the headline. Two headlines that drive me crazy. Is Me Too dead? No, it's not. Okay. And number two, the minute somebody of big nature, like I'll use Bill O'Reilly as an example, because I saw this right after he fell down. Within 3 weeks, the media was asking, when is Bill O'Reilly going to make a comeback? And it was like, what the fuck? Like, what about all the women who
Right. Where's
he
their comeback?
allegedly abused, who nobody has ever heard from ever again? And then you magnify that by all the other people who are being affected by assault and harassment in this country. And where are they? Nowhere.
Hmm.
So why the media plays a central role in the way in which culture continues to grow with this. Because if they continue to put out the messaging about we should bring the men back and we don't talk about the women, even though they did nothing wrong, and we continue to promulgate the myth that Me Too is dead in our headlines, that shapes the hearts and minds of people who are listening to that stuff. So we really have to dig deep to figure out, how do we finally change these cultural norms that we have become comfortable with. And
Yeah.
one
Well,
of those is that we prop up men. And why do we do that? I mean, I guess we live in a patriarchal society, but why don't we care about the women? So we have to really look at it through a different lens. Like, the media doesn't always want to cover all the good work that I'm doing. Why? I don't know. It might not be snazzy enough. It might not be like something's dead. So that makes a good headline. We used to say in local news, if it bleeds, it leads.
hmm.
But they don't always want to cover the good work I'm doing. And every time they do a headline like Me Too is dead, my PR people will reach out to them and be like, but wait a minute, this is what Gretchen Carlson's doing. How could you possibly say that? So it is sort of dependent on the media to also join us in this fight and stop going for the easy headline and stop going for the easy recovery mission of all of these men.
Well, not to pile on the media, but it does that across the board. I mean, the questions like that are fodder for the panel discussion.
Yes.
That's the lead in for the panel discussion. Same as like if Trump says, I'm going to ban all Asian people or whatever, some nonsense, the anchor will inevitably turn to the panel and say, why would he say that? And George Conway and I always joke when he's on, we go, why would he say that? Because he's a sociopath. Like that's it. But you see, that's a conversation ender, right? That like you don't have a panel with that lead in. And so, but the problem is it's not just about a panel discussion, it's that those kinds of questions, especially is Me Too dead, it shapes a narrative and it normalizes the bad
Yes.
behavior. It's like whenever Trump gives a speech or something and it's not completely bonkers and he doesn't drool, somebody will inevitably say, he was kind of presidential tonight. And you're like, what? There was not 1 second of presidential. Just because he wasn't god awful in every single moment doesn't mean he was presidential. So I think the media does have to look at itself and take more responsibility for helping a normalization of crazy behavior, the kind of
That's
behavior you're talking about.
Well, and then, well, just to take it a step more, Trump's, of course, in charge of the FCC being able to take away the media's licenses and such. So, that's why I think you've seen more deference, and look at all these payouts from the ABC and the CBS lawsuits and situations like that. I mean, those are game changers for the way journalism works. And
Yeah.
that's why I was shocked beyond belief that he actually had the nuts to sue Rupert Murdoch over that Wall Street Journal article, because they both have a lot to lose in that scenario. Like, Rupert appears to be not backing down from it, and yet you ask yourself, why would Trump do that to Rupert? Because his mouthpiece is Fox News, and up until
Hmm.
a while ago, the Wall Street Journal, although they've been taking him on now. And I guess my analysis of why Trump would do it is because he had to show his base that when he blusters that it's fake news and all that, he has to then show up and sue, right? Because that's what he did in
Hmm.
the past. Um, I don't think Murdoch is going to throw in the towel on this, and maybe
No.
this is just going to go away silently. Like, I've even thought about the fact that they even have some sort of a deal between the two of them, like kind of like when Trump let Iran attack the American base over in the Middle East, but he told everyone in advance, "Oh yeah, we know they're going to do that before."
Right.
Like, what? But kind of the same thing. Like, maybe Trump called up Murdoch and said, "Hey, I got to sue you because that's my MO, but this will never go anywhere." I don't know. that's a story worth watching, because I don't think that Murdoch's going to crumble. And by the way, what Trump has to lose in that whole thing is, what if Fox News starts taking on Trump? I mean,
Right.
you really want to agitate that guy who actually has a lot of your power? I would argue that Murdoch holds a lot of Trump's power with Fox News. So that to me was, one of the more fascinating stories. But back to what I was saying is that Trump can control your licenses, and he can, push networks to get rid of shows. And I think that from me as a journalist, forget my advocacy hat for a minute, that is also a tremendous great fear of where that is all heading as well. There's
Well,
a
look what he's done with CBS and ABC, and he's basically trying to tell networks or scare networks into not covering him in a way that's not favorable or that would be incriminating, you
but
know?
you don't even know as a journalist why he would. I mean, I guess you could just argue that any negative story about him, that means he's going to sue you. So that would be problematic.
It's also part of his overall flood the zone strategy. It's like I said to you before, like, tell me what he did last week. Like, he just sits there. I bet you there's like a director of flood the zone. Like, that's a job title. Like, just, okay, what can we flood today? Because whether it's us at home or the media or the courts, he's exhausting the system. He's exhausting every institution. He's exhausting the electorate. And I think that is his special sauce. The suit with Rupert Murdoch, to me, if you remember when he filed that, it was in the thick of the, oh my God, is this Epstein thing going to bring him down? And I just think it was a strategic decision on his part with his aides to say, okay, let's take something we can't control, which is this out of control narrative right now about Epstein, and focus it back on something we know is a winner, the bad media, the fake news media. It's a narrative that MAGA has bought over and over and over again. I don't think it was thought through on any conceivable level, to your points. He doesn't
Yeah.
think about the ramifications in 6 months. Oh, what if I have to go to court? What if I have to sit down for depositions? What could come out then? Like, he doesn't put any of that. So when I say strategy, I'm kind of using that term extremely loosely, but I think it
Yes.
was just a in the moment, like, oh shit, I got to do something. But I know we
Yeah.
got a couple of minutes left. I just want to ask you, because you know better than most people about survivors and how they typically face intense backlash and gaslighting and reputational attacks. And especially now, as we said, in this current administration, it's heightened. What advice do you give women and men who are weighing the decision to come forward?
Yeah, great question, Andy. And I always say it's such a personal choice, because while we have made so much progress, chances are you're still going to be penalized if you do come forward, especially in the workplace. You probably, it'll be hard to be hired again, et cetera. That's sort of the last effort area to try and make the most change. When we were talking about culture earlier, like why does the media prop people up, et cetera. It's that's going to be the last thing that will need to change to really make it safer for everyone to be able to come forward. So personal choice. For me, it suddenly became just an unbearable situation. And when they fired me, after an 11-year career there, and I was at the top of my game, and I was being fired for absolutely no good reason other than I wouldn't acquiesce. That was just sort of the final reason why I decided to jump. Um, and I decided, I mean, I knew in my heart and mind that I would maybe never ever work again. My gosh, I never thought I'd end up doing what I'm doing now, which is changing safety of the workplace. And I'm still on TV, so
Mhm.
it's all worked out. But personal choice, it really depends on whether or not you can weather that storm, because they will try to drown you still.
Mm.
And it takes, an immense amount of strength and courage and determination and knowledge that you may not be able to do what you love anymore with regard to working. I mean, I always say as a caveat to that is, look, there's an army of people that support you. Like, we're huge, we're out here. And we're working every day to try and make it easier for you to come forward. But most important is like, I look in the eyes of my children and I wonder, like, will it be different for them? My daughter just entered the workforce for the first time, and so we currently know it's different, but not that much different.
Yeah.
So yeah, coming forward, loaded question, personal choice. I'm passing laws to make it easier for you to do that, but there's still work to be done.
Solid advice. Gretchen, thanks so much for coming on. Great stuff.
Always great. And I'm looking forward to that robe eventually.
All right. Well, we got to get you back on 2 more times.
All right. Have a good one, Andy.
You too. Bye-bye.